Hi there, my name is Stevie P. I am doing guides on how to defeat bosses in Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is the first boss that you come across in Chapter 1. He's called the Scorpion Sentinel. You come across him in Chapter 1, the destruction of Marco Reactor 1. He's a surprisingly difficult boss. There is not much to really tell you about the settings because at this point most of that is set for you by the game. I will just quickly show you the battle settings, where you can set certain moves to certain shortcuts, which can be very useful. However, I advise caution using these because what you can end up doing is treating the game as a real-time game, trying to use the shortcuts when actually you can be much more efficient using tactical mode inside the actual battle to issue commands from a menu. You can be much more efficient that way. I'll show you that in this particular battle, but it is worth just shouting out that you can put shortcuts here. So I'm going to get on now and show you the battle itself. Run in. I'm just going to basically skip through these cutscenes. So skip, set to 20 minutes, and skip again. And here he is, the Scorpion Sentinel. A number of things that I want to show you, but first of all, you can see above his name he's doing a move called Electro Stomp. You need to always watch out for that red underline because it means the enemy's about to do something, and what you want to do here is dodge out of the way with both of them before he does an attack. That's quite tricky to do. Don't worry if you struggle at first, but you just need to switch between both of them, dodge out of the way so that you take no damage. Another thing I quickly want to show you is this. If you unlock, the screen is free to move and you will generally target whoever you are facing. If you lock, the screen will automatically center on the enemy, and that will be the guaranteed who you will be attacking. Generally, I advise to use lock rather than just free running around, but that is kind of up to preference. I just think it's more effective to lock onto your enemy. Next thing I want to tell you about is their special abilities. Behind the tactical mode window is a gauge that is currently full for Barret, and it will have the word overcharge behind it, which means that he can use an ability straight away. That is his special ability. Now what overcharge does is it does damage to the enemy, but it also builds up ATB. So if you take your eyes now to under Barret's name at the bottom right, there is a grey ATB bar or gauge with a blue bar that's filling the gauge up. Once that blue bar reaches the diagonal black line, if you cast your eyes to the bottom left, there are commands. When he has enough ATB, in other words, that blue bar has passed the black diagonal line, you will be able to issue one of these commands, which you can do from here, or as I explained earlier, you can do that using the shortcut that you might have set to one of his abilities. So that is basically what overcharge does. It builds up his ATB so that you can use an ability. It obviously does damage as well. So I'm going to show you that just now. I'm going to exit tactical mode and then press the special ability button and watch what happens to the ATB under Barret's name. So bang, 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 and that blue bar has filled up to the point that now you can see the commands have become available. He can use one of these. That's what overcharge does. Very useful. Now the enemy in the meantime is using target scanner. Now target scanner will lock onto whoever you have under your control, and that in this case will be Barret. That's by design because I want the enemy to be targeting Barret so that I can use Cloud to dish out some damage in just a moment. What I'm now going to show you, now that he has a spell available, I'm going to do Thunder against the enemy. As soon as I've done Thunder, watch the bottom left charge bar and watch what happens. So I'm going to use Thunder. There we go. Now I'm going to attack.
A target lock. Look out.
Okay. So you might not have seen all of that. Basically, when you press and hold attack, Barret will start performing an attack. He eventually will need to reload. When he's reloading, a useful tip for you is to press the special ability button at the same time that he is reloading, because that will charge up his charge meter. And once the meter gets to full, he'll be able to use overcharge again, and when he uses overcharge again, it will fill up the ATB. That is basically how you use Barret's special ability. So I hope that makes sense. We are now in a position, once again, to use a spell, and I'm going to use Thunder again at the enemy. Thunder is quicker than his move. He's using Mark marked launcher ability. It fires missiles. Barrett will hit him with thunder before he manages to fire that off. And what I'm going to do is jump over to Cloud quickly. So he's using thunder again against Scorpion, and he is vulnerable to thunder. And I want you to watch what happens underneath the Scorpion Sentinel's name. Watch closely just now. Bang. The second thunder hit, and what it did was it put the Scorpion Sentinel into a pressured state. That pressured state is an opportunity which I'm going to explain in just a moment. So I wanted you to notice that because it's significant. Put a pin in that. I'm now going to just briefly explain Cloud's special ability. So with Cloud, when you tap the special ability button, he changes stance and he goes into Punisher mode. In this mode, he moves slower and he takes more damage, but he dishes out a lot more damage as well. So it's one to use with care. This is a safe moment to use it because the Scorpion Sentinel is pressured, and at this moment he's also not doing any attacks. So we've got an opportunity to attack. So in Punisher mode, press and hold attack, and then watch. Boom. Cloud bangs his sword onto the ground, and a little orange set of teeth has appeared under Cloud's ATB bar. He is now in Berserk mode, which means he's doing even more damage. So it's really powerful, and he also has enough ATB to do a move. So I'm now going to circle back to what I asked you to take note of earlier, the pressured situation, the pressured state that the enemy is in. What you would normally want to do is use focused thrust. Focused thrust, it says in the description, significantly increases stagger. Stagger is that orange bar. When you use focused thrust, it will significantly increase that. Now the point of increasing that is to fill up that gauge. Once you fill up that gauge, the pressure gauge, the enemy will become staggered. When he is staggered, he takes significantly more damage. So usually right now, whilst he is pressured, you want to use focused thrust so that you can stagger him and then do loads of damage. I'm going to confuse you now by telling you that I'm not going to do that, and that's only because bosses go through different phases. I happen to know that even though he's pressured, if we use focus thrust right now, we will not be able to pressure him before he changes phase into the next phase of the fight, and when he changes phase, that depletes the pressured gauge. So I've got a choice. I can use focus thrust to build up pressure, but know that I'll never be able to stagger him, or I can use Braver, which does more damage but doesn't pressure him. So the choice will be yours. I hope my explanation made sense, but I'm going to choose to just do more damage by using Braver rather than building pressure, which won't move him on to the next phase as quickly, giving him more chances basically to do more damage to you. So I'm going to use Braver there, and then with Barrett, going to attack, and again, once he needs to reload, special ability button, and now he can use Overcharge, and he can also do a spell, so I'm going to use Thunder against the enemy. Now I believe that might have done enough. Maybe not quite enough. Move back over to Barrett. Sometimes you will have done enough damage that he will move on to the next phase before he fires off those missiles from the wall. In this case, we didn't get to do that, but that's okay. I'm going to jump over to Cloud and just get Cloud to do a few attacks so that we move him on to the next phase. There we go. When he moves on to the next phase, and this is typical in boss fights, you get an animation like this, and that tells you now we're in the next phase. So, at the beginning of this phase, I'm going to tell you something cool about Cloud. As long as Cloud has a target, he will traverse the battlefield quicker than anyone else in the game, even quicker than Tifa, although she runs faster than him. And that's because of the first of his attacks in his chain of attacks, which enables him to launch towards the enemy at great speed. Now, if after you've tapped the attack button, he launches towards the enemy, you then dodge roll, you can tap it again and he'll launch again, and that's how you move very swiftly. Roll.
Find a way.
You see how quickly he moves. So it's very quick. Now he's going to use target scanner, which is fine. So when he uses target scanner, as soon as you see target scanner, jump over to Barret, because Barret is who you want the Scorpion Sentinel to be targeting. So that's why I jumped over. But I got Cloud nice and quickly over to this side of the battlefield and now behind the Scorpion Sentinel, because what's changed in this phase of the battle is, as you can see, around the Scorpion Sentinel's body is now a field that basically makes him impervious to any kind of damage. However, at the same time, you might notice there are now 2 targets on the Scorpion Sentinel's body. One of those is a field generator. This is a generator creating the field around the Sentinel, and it is very helpfully labeled the weak spot. So, this is what you want to be attacking.
Bingo. Focus on that cord.
And you want to be attacking with Cloud, whilst he focuses on Barret. So Barret is basically tanking right now. Do 2 braver attacks. Nice. He's going to do this thing called Death Grip. Don't worry, it's actually harmless. The game will tell you that it's some kind of problem. You just keep attacking until that field generator is destroyed. Now that it's destroyed, we are in the position to do what I told you before, which is to use the focus attacks, and that will dramatically build up the pressure.
Here it comes.
So they're both going to do this. They're both going to attack. So Barret used focus shot, Cloud used focus thrust, and he's already at basically half pressure, which is pretty good.
Don't overdo it.
Now he is able to use overcharge again. So what I'm going to do is get him to use the pressure shot again, dodge out of the way of EN field, use overcharge, focus shot again, and we'll very soon have the guy staggered. There we go. Now he is staggered. This is where we want to do a bunch of damage. So I'm going to quickly just put Cloud into Punisher mode, get him berserked, and then we're just going to do Braver. A good couple of Bravers. Boom. Now he's less than half health. We got to stagger him, and we took a significant amount of his health down, which is fantastic. That is just what we wanted. Now we get an animation because he's moving into the next phase of the fight. Now they haven't taken an awful lot of damage so far. In this particular phase, sometimes they do take quite a bit of damage, depending on how you play.
Watch the tail.
But basically we're in the same position again. Cloud, roll and attack like that. You get Cloud forward nice and quick. Although that was a bit foolish because I got him too far forward. Anyway, he's going to do tail laser, so you want them both behind the 2 different piles of rubble. And as soon as he attacks one of them, with the other one, you bring them out to start attacking. Now, as soon as he finishes his attack, there's going to be a short moment where he's going to be pressured. When he's pressured, you use the focus abilities, and look at that. With 2 focus abilities, he's nearly staggered again. So that is really, really handy. With Barret, I'm just going to use overcharge to get him some ATB. And then with Cloud, you want to run behind him. Keep watching out for the moves that he's going to do. EN field, so you just want to dodge that. And I actually jumped forward a bit too quickly there, so that was my fault. He's going to jump up into the air. Whenever he does that, make sure that you block, because when he lands, he's going to do damage. Now we're behind him, so we're going to do Braver. And then block. Run behind him.
Find it open.
And with Barret, sorry, I am just leaving that ATB there and letting the AI control him, just to keep it quite simple, because to be honest, there's really very little point overcomplicating. Block whenever he jumps, go behind him. This is basically the pattern that you're going to follow. And basically any second now he's actually going to be staggered. Block, Okay. There we go. Now he's staggered, so this is absolutely perfect. Barrett is going to use Thunder, because that's his most powerful ability. Cloud is going to use Braver. Just use another Thunder. And basically, now we move into the last phase of the fight. We've done enough damage that now we're at that point in this final phase. He's going to start self-healing. Now that might sound very bad, but it's actually really not a problem at all. We need to just destroy the legs. And jump over to Cloud, launch him in, which is very, very useful. So a Braver and a Thunder against that leg should be enough, and it was, to pressurize him. Now that he's pressurized, focus shot, Cloud into punish mode, berserk him, and then just attack, focus thrust, and then he's staggered. And that's basically going to just be the end of the fight. There we go. That is basically how to do it. So yeah, Cloud did take quite a little bit of damage. I think that was because at one point the enemy had done, he did his EM field, and I did dodge out of the way of it, but then I launched him back in a bit too quickly, and so Cloud took some extra damage. Normally, you know, if you do this absolutely to the book, Cloud would be much more than half health. So yeah, that is basically how to win this fight in a way that I think is very, very easy, and you shouldn't have to use a single heal. And hopefully you got some good tips and tricks there on their special abilities and perhaps some mechanics in the game that you were unaware of. And yeah, thank you very much for your time, and let me know if you've got any feedback. Cheers.